What's up, everyone? Thomas here with ForReel, and I have the distinct pleasure today of talking with Anthony Hayes, co-star, co-writer, and director of the film Gold, which reaches theaters March 11th. Anthony, thank you so much for joining me on this call.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. I want to start off by saying well done on this film. I really enjoyed experiencing it and getting super immersed in this story and in the wonderful desert world of Australia. and I just thought it was such a wonderful experience.
Yeah, it's a very thank you. It's a very experiential film. Really, it's predominantly played out on one patch of desert, predominantly Zac Efron on his own, dealing with the elements. So it is a very experiential thing. It's a particularly good film to see at the theaters because of that. It's a very economical film in terms of the absence of backstory and character development and the usual things of a film, because we wanted to create a world in the future where it was devoid of humanity, and that in a place where we value things more than we value human connection. And so it really is an experiential film with very little dialogue, very little cast, and very few elements to it, wrapped up as a survival genre film.
Absolutely. Why don't you go ahead and give us a little synopsis on what the film's about?
So a guy goes to a desert. He finds some he finds some gold. The end. The sun beams down on him.
That's funny.
Yeah. It's set sometime in the future, some place in the future. It's a place we're heading into if we're not careful about what we value as humans. If we keep raping the planet of its resources. And so it's set in, somewhat of I wouldn't call it post-apocalyptic, but future place where Zac Efron's character has come from the crumbling cities on the fringes of society and lands in the middle of nowhere and gets a lift with my character to a place called the Compound. And the Compound is, the promised land, essentially, in the middle of this deserted landscape where people can earn money, and people from the crumbling cities are coming to seek their fortune or to seek a job or employment. And on the way, these two guys stumble accidentally across a massive chunk of gold, and they can't get the gold out of the ground. So they need an excavator. So one of them, which is Zac, stays behind to protect the gold and make sure nobody else comes along. And my character goes off to get the excavation equipment to drag the thing out. And then Zac is stuck in the middle of nowhere, 360 degrees of nothing but a tree. And a lot of the film plays out with him trying to survive in that experience with heat stroke and sun and absence of supplies, and becomes a survivalist film in a sense. Dogs that are coming after him, wild dogs that keep encroaching, and then eventually a stranger that happens upon the camp, and things go from bad to worse. I think it's a good way to say it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that captures everything everyone needs to know about it. Like you said, it's a very economical kind of story. Limited cast, limited background on what's going on, but it just enough to understand exactly how harrowing this particular situation is. And I think that's what I like most about the film, is the fact that there is so little to it, but there is so much thrill and so much anxiety and stress that can come from this particular kind of situation.
It is very anxiety inducing as a movie. That was, one of the things that I knew had to happen for this film to work, is that because it is so economical in the way we wrote it and the way it's delivered to the screen, that it was about making it as tight as possible. So it's a 92-minute film or whatever it is, and about making sure that I use the tools that I have as a filmmaker, like sound design and various kind of different lenses on the camera, to keep tightening the noose around the audience's neck, as it were, and deliver a very visceral experience and a very uncomfortable experience, so that you were right there in the center of it with him and experiencing it alongside him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think like what is the opposite of claustrophobia? Where there's just so
Agoraphobia, is
acro
it?
something like that, right? Because
Yeah.
it's just it happens in this really big space. But it is so there's still so much anxiety that's involved with it. I'm curious where this story came from. Like what inspired a story like this?
Yeah, it was actually two-pronged. I was directing and producing a film that I wrote in Vancouver a couple of years before Gold happened, and it had a big ensemble cast attached to it. And we couldn't get all the. We went into pre-production, and we got 5 weeks in, and the finance fell out of the film because we couldn't get all the cast together at the one time. And so I was kind of heartbroken after being 5 weeks into that experience, came back home to Australia, and then said to my writing partner, Polly Smythe, need to come up with a film that doesn't rely on an ensemble where you have to bring 10 people to the table to facilitate the finance of the film, and just make it a one-man show, get one actor and just make it and just do it. And so that was, part of the reason for developing it. And then, we wanted to touch on themes, as, everyone does, about humanity and where we're heading, but then also package that in a sellable, marketable, palatable thing like a genre film, and make it a thriller slash survival film. um, and Zach originally was I was speaking to him about coming and replacing an actor on the Stingray movie, and he almost did that, but the word back after we had a few meetings was he wanted to work with me, but wasn't going to do Stingray. And then we had Gold finished at that stage, so we turned around and said, "Oh, he wants to work with me. How about this film?" And then just gave it to him. He read it and then said yes. And then we very quickly pivoted from Stingray over to Gold, and it happened all very, very quickly after that.
I am interested in talking about Stingray in a little bit because there's another big name attached to that, from what I know. And I don't know how much you can talk about that, but I'll get
Yeah,
back to that a little bit later.
sure thing.
I do find it interesting that you're filming in Vancouver. I'm actually in Seattle. I make trips up to Vancouver periodically, and it's a wonderful city, and I love the film community and the hub for film and TV that happens up there. So come back, make another film up here.
I'd love to. I'd love to.
I am. Tell me more about your career as an actor and a filmmaker, because you've done a lot of acting and some directing and writing as well. Tell me more about like how your career has developed from an actor to a filmmaker, and kind of what your ambitions are from here.
Yeah, I guess you could call me a journeyman in the acting space. I've probably done over 100 productions in my career. I started when I was 9 years old in kids television and TV commercials, and then went into a soap opera for a bit in my teenage years. Did my first film when I was 18 years old, which was a film called The Boys with Tony Collette and David Wenham, and that was a critical success in Australia. And that was kind of the launch pad for my serious acting career, to get out of being a child actor and a soap actor, and a step that I knew I had to take if I wanted longevity in the industry. Um, and so I've probably done 30 films over the years, ranging from small budget Aussie indie films to War Machine with Brad Pitt, Light Between Oceans with Alicia Vikander and Fassbender, um, Cargo with Martin Freeman. And so I've had the opportunity over, and The Rover with Robert Pattinson and Guy Pearce. So I've had the opportunity over to, not only as an actor, to build a career and work with great people, but also to learn from great directors like David Michôd and like Derek Cianfrance, for instance, for Light Between Ocean, who I was a big fan of, and learn from them and put it into my filmmaking. And I made my first I made shorts when I was younger, and short features, and then my first feature film was about 10 years ago. And what I probably learned the most from that experience was that if you're going to release a film, you'd want to have another script ready to go, to capitalize on it, and I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got very busy as an actor, and it was just hard to kind of find, it's such a long process to develop things. Then I very seriously started to pivot probably about 5 years ago, and realized that I had to really pull my finger out and get these screenplays written. And So I've got, 5 or 6 films ready to go. One's been optioned by Kristen Burr, who produced Cruella, and
Hmm.
that's a completely different type of movie. It's a comedy, essentially, about 2 old women who escape a retirement home to go and see Black Sabbath in concert. Um,
Oh.
so it's I like to write very different things, and so I think in terms of the future, I really love filmmaking. I love being able to have a bigger overview than you do as an actor. I find acting sometimes unfulfilling as a job, and some projects are completely fulfilling, but it's hit and miss. And in Australia, it was always a case. There were people like Joel Edgerton and all those guys, and Joel's directed a bunch of films too, that we always knew when we were younger that if we were ever going to have a sustainable career in Australia, at least, that you had to also get out there and rattle the cage and do it a bit yourself. Um, and a lot of Australians do that because the industry is so small, a lot of Australian actors.
Hmm.
So yeah, I've got projects ready. And the next one I'm looking to get up as a sci-fi trilogy called Retrogression, and it's a crypto and film tie-in. So I'm actually bizarrely launching a crypto token next week for that project, where it raises funds for the film. And we've built a short filmmakers streaming platform for award-winning films around the world, and they earn the token. And so I'm trying to bring the film community and the crypto community together, because I think there's a great opportunity there to um, find another way to finance films where the IP and the ownership of the film stays with the creators, because that's a bit of a sore point with a lot of filmmakers, is they have to essentially hand over their entire film to a whole bunch of middlemen. Um, so yeah, I love acting. I still do, but I can see myself heading more into filmmaking.
That's really, I mean, there's so much in that that is so awesome and respectable as well, especially when you're talking about trying to find more creative ways to finance film. I mean, I talk with independent filmmakers, regularly, and one of the biggest, I've stopped asking the question, what was the hardest part about making this film, because it is always
Same answer.
same answer unanimously. So I just
Yeah,
know the
yeah.
answer to that. So what you're saying about like getting into crypto and bringing the crypto community to the film community and trying to find a way for those to intermingle, that I mean, that means a lot. And that's, I wish you the best in that endeavor. I think that'd be great.
Yeah, I
uh
think it's the future. I mean, it's even it's starting to merge together. Matt Damon does crypto ads now, so Hollywood and crypto are converging in one way or another. But I think bringing Netflix to the table revolutionized the way films were distributed and put premiums on top of budgets, so that filmmakers were compensated
Mhm.
uh, first before it went through the many hands. And I think there's actually a way to further incentivize and put the profits and the IP back in the hands of creators through crypto, through using a community.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I hope that that continues to come to fruition. You were talking earlier about how it's not uncommon for Australians to kind of just make it happen themselves, right? And something that I find interesting and very awesome about your productions is that you tend to star in your films. Tell me more
Yeah.
about that kind of that choice to like be a part, to be like an on-screen part of the movies that you make.
Yeah, I guess the first thing is nobody can tell me no. That's I've been told so many times in my career that I'm trying to balance it out. Um, yeah, I did it earlier on. I did it in my films and in a short feature that I made. And then when I did my first feature, I actually didn't act in that because I wanted to just soak up the filmmaking experience.
Mhm.
But this one, I hadn't intended to act in gold. But I warmed to the character as the process went on. And then when we signed on Zac, I really had a strong bond with him, and
Mhm.
felt that, first of all, I wanted to act with him because he was great. And secondly, I thought it would lay a really solid platform of trust between us, that we could
Mhm.
perform together, and therefore I can get inside his head a bit better and create a really safe environment for him to do a performance that he's never done before, in the type of film he's never done before. So, as much as it was about me wanting to be in it, it was also about creating a camaraderie and a trust in the minimal amount of time that we had to be together.
Yeah, that's incredible, and I think it worked, right? Like you mentioned before, that the movie really kind of centers on Zach and his part of the story, but there is a significant portion of the film where you and Zach are kind of together, and like you have dialogue with each other, and have to figure out that dynamic, and it's so interesting to watch that unfold. And a part of that anxiety isn't just the space that Zach's character is in, but it's the mistrust that that can be that may or may not exist, right? You don't
Yeah,
we
that's
don't
right.
know.
Yeah, is it in his head? Is it not? I mean, you find a chunk of gold and someone's not right in front of you. All
Right.
those elements come to the fore, and then the ticking clock nature of it, of will I
Hmm.
get back in time for him to survive as well, is built into it. So
Right.
it's
It's so dynamic. It's so dynamic. And I loved that about this film. Um, I also think it's really cool that Zach was a part of this. You just mentioned that this was, kind of a film he's never done before, and a role that he's never done before. And I think really that was one of the things that attracted me to this project, is seeing a film where Zach is kind of is the lone performer. I haven't seen that before from him. I've seen musical, I've seen,
yeah, that's right.
comedy, but I haven't seen solo performance before. And he pulls it off so well. Tell me more about like working with Zach on this particular kind of role that's so different from him, but actually ended up working so well.
Yeah, it's fantastic that when actors take that leap, and obviously Zach was looking for something different. He's done a string of comedies, and I was always a big fan of
Hmm.
his work in comedies, and I'm always a believer that there is an intrinsic connection between good comedy actors and dramatic actors, and that good comedy comes from uh, a place of absolute believability. It's
Hmm.
similar to drama, and Zach's comedy, although it's often very over the top and huge, there's always a vulnerability in it, and it always comes from a real place as a performance, and a real solid foundation for a character. So I knew he had the chops to do it. And then when I saw him also in Ted Bundy movie as well, which was a great turn for him. And I remember seeing him years ago, going to the theater, and saw Orson Welles movie that he did a long time ago. And I remember being quite struck by just how much of a movie star he was even back then. And I was just like, wow, this kid's amazing. Like
Hmm.
he has a charisma on the screen that is incredible, and he's really great. And so he's kind of put himself in those roles. And quite often actors get pigeonholed into what they do best, or what economically serves everyone else best in the film industry. And so to see him come and do a smaller film, an indie film, because he's usually in the studio system, was
Hmm.
a really great thing for us, and for him, I think, where he got to do a production without all the pressure of a studio on, and try and do something different. And he really goes there in this movie. One of the first things we talked about was, we grow your hair, grow your beard, let it all out. Let's,
Hmm.
put a different Zach on the field, and let's explore the Dorian Gray of this character, as it
Hmm.
were, and show externally the interior darkness and greed that is inside this man as the film travels. So, and apart from that physical thing, because Robert Pattinson did it in The Rover as well, where he was a
Hmm.
heartthrob, and then all of a sudden pulled out this performance and made himself look like shit. But at the
Hmm.
at the key of it is, you need a good performance, and I knew that Zach could hold the screen for 90 minutes, because he's a genuine movie star with a lot of charisma. Um, and what we needed to work on is just a different type of performance, a subtlety, and internalizing a lot of the emotion. There's no dialogue, there's no exposition, there's hardly anyone for him to work off for most of the film. And that's why, what I mentioned before about, getting inside his head and acting alongside him, was really important, to get into the internal Zac Efron, to be able to solicit this performance out of him. and kudos to him. He was so pumped for it. He was so excited. He was so ready to go. He rolled around in that dirt, in sandstorms, in extreme heat, didn't complain once, didn't have a trailer to sit in. And it could have gone terribly wrong with an A-list actor. I could have got
Mhm.
someone out there in the desert, and, who knows? We've all heard the stories of what can happen there. And, I didn't know what I was getting myself into, but he just put in 150% every day, never complained, and really wanted to do something different. And I mentioned Ted Bundy before, and even that that was a good turn for him and a great performance. It still relies heavily, that role, on him being incredibly good looking and charming,
Mm.
because that's what
Mhm.
Ted Bundy was. And so this is
Right.
a step further for him, and he's actually very ugly in it, or he becomes
Mhm.
very ugly. And to explore those darker sides of Zac Efron on the screen is something audiences haven't seen before. And I think that's what I'm most excited about with this movie, is that it's a real turn from a real movie star. And he bought it, which is great.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's all apparent in this film, I'm excited to see audiences reaction to this kind of new side of Zach, and what he's able to do as an actor. So
Yeah, I'm
yeah.
looking forward to seeing what his fan base
Mhm.
from the High School
High
Musical
School
things. They're
Musical,
gonna,
right?
they're gonna hate me. They're gonna hate me. What have you done to our Zach?
That is funny. We've seen plenty of musicals from Zach already. He had
We
Hairspray, he had
sure have.
Greatest Showman. Let's get this really
Yeah,
great performance, and hopefully, I think that a lot of people will be receptive, and I think that it'll play well. Hopefully, that's what I'm hoping. But I also want
hopefully.
to talk about the other character that shows up. You mentioned that there's a stranger that kind of wanders into the scene. The stranger is played by Susie Porter, and this is such a mysterious, ominous character that I really wanted to ask about how this character kind of came to fruition in this story. Like, how did this character get so like um ominous and mysterious, and the development of that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we knew it structurally, in terms of the film, that we needed to bring something else in. It couldn't just be pure survival.
Hmm.
Even in the Mads Mikkelsen film, which is fantastic, in the snow,
Hmm.
um, that he did recently, he had that other character there that he nursed and had to save. And so we needed to bring someone in to fuck him up and to change his
Hmm.
plans and to drive his, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on this, but
Oh
I'm
no,
sure
you're
we'll beep it
good.
out.
Yeah, no, you're
Oh,
good.
good, good. Um, and uh, and kind of drive forward the story at a particular point in the movie, just when you need it. And like I mentioned before, is that my character's called Man Two, his character's called Man One.
Hmm.
We don't even have names. We don't have backstories. You don't know where we are. And it's the same with her. She's an enigma. She comes into this world out of nowhere in the film, and it's quite surprising when she does. And she comes with her own set of agendas, and even those are ambiguous and able to be read into by the audience. But the way we always imagined her was that she was a character that was of the land, and that she was, although she was a terrifying character in a sense, she's also the one that says, leave the stuff in the ground. Don't come out to this place and just take it for what it's worth. We need to be better as humans. And there's a hint to that in the beginning of the film that a lot of people probably won't pick up, which is a billboard at the beginning, which actually shows her costume on these other women. And when you dig deeper into it, they're essentially kind of environmental freedom fighters, as it were, who are patrolling out this thing. And someone said to me, that'll be an awesome sequel to the movie. You go into that, it becomes really Mad Maxy. But that was the thing about the film too, is that I could rabbit on here about all the backstories that we created, but the idea was to lay a platform where an audience had to work a bit harder and
Hmm.
read into it the way they want to and interpret it how they want to. And so that's my theory on it, and Susie has her theory on it, and Zach has his theory, and the audience will as well.
I absolutely love that about this movie. I think that movies and narratives sometimes can give too much away, or can be too detailed, or maybe even like explain too much to the audience. And I think that there's so much room for imagination here with trying to like just kind of piece together what could have led all these characters to these moments and interactions that they have. And I think, I don't want to give away the ending, but it put me in a state of like self-reflection by the end.
Well, that's good. That's
because
good.
because there is an interesting twist at the end, which like I said, I'm not going to give away, but there is,
Yeah.
like, I spend a lot of the movie kind of thinking, what would I do in this situation? How would that go if I was there? And then you get to the end and it's like, oh, very interesting. Now I have to think about everything again.
Yeah, that's right. I have to go back and piece it all together again. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a heck of an ending.
It,
It's yeah, and watching it in test screenings, there's a significant amount of the audience reacting to it. That's for sure.
yeah, which is great. I love when a movie can have that little twist at the end. So very cool. Well, the last thing I want to kind of bring up and talk about is your upcoming project, Stingray. If there's anything that you can tell me about that, and how that's coming along, and who is attached to that project.
Yeah, Stingray is a tricky one. It's actually in the screenplay is encumbered at the moment with some of the old producers. So we are trying to get it back up. It's about engineering some kind of deal, because we did go into 5 weeks into pre-production, and significant money was spent before it was shut down. So unfortunately for that production, there's issues that we need to sort out. So it's on the back burner, but Joel Edgerton was attached to it and is still attached to it at the moment. And if we can work out those things behind the scenes, then it's a really popular film in the sales landscape. Everyone who reads it jumps on it. We get offers every week about that film. So hopefully, look, we can all come together as an agreement as producers and let it go forward, because it's a great script and it's something I really want to make. But it's unfortunately one of those things that may not make it to the screen.
It is interesting how I feel like most films go through this. I think when we as an audience see a film, we think, oh yes, they picked up a camera, they got some actors, there's probably some producers involved, and magic, then we have a movie. And I think just because we're so exposed to movies so often, we forget like the struggle that's involved with making a film. So I have my fingers crossed for you on Stingray, because just like the little bits of information I know, I love Joel Edgerton, and the synopsis, at least the little snippet that I've read online, sounds phenomenal. I loved Gold. I'm ready to see what you do next, and so I am I'm very hopeful that you will get that project off the ground, and then maybe we can see it in theaters.
Well, hopefully you and I will be talking about the next one in no time at all.
Yes, that is my hope as well. So anyway, Anthony, thank you so much again for taking this time out to talk with me about Gold, and I am looking forward to hearing more about what people think about the film, and you and Zac's performance and Susie's performance in the film.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Really appreciate your support of the film.
Absolutely.